Welcome to bittenOFFfleshh Reptiles. I want to talk about some things I like to think about before adding to my collection. Now, before adding to my collection, let's say I'm looking to get a new snake. Well, I think about with that snake, am I going to be able to feed it? And am I going to be able to have a constant supply of food for that snake? So say yes, okay, we'll check that off the list. So then the next thing that I'd look at is, all right, do I have an enclosure for it? Do I have the right size enclosure on top of, do I have the space for that enclosure? And then once that's checked off the list, the next thing I'm going to look for is, let's say, do I have the time to put in the effort that's going to be needed to be the best carekeeper for that reptile? Now, if I check that, if I get those three right there, I'm most likely going to end up getting that snake. But I like to have a handful of things to think about before getting a new reptile because I impulse buy sometimes, and the animal does not go without it. It gets fed, it has the right size enclosure, but with it being an impulse buy, it doesn't really benefit the collection or anything that I had going on. And it was just, I wanted it. It was gorgeous, so I got it. So it still helps, especially with impulse buys, to make sure you're not going to buy something and not be able to properly care for it. You don't want to go out to the store and buy a Savannah monitor and then buy a 40-gallon fish tank and expect it to live in that half its life. It's not going to work like that. So there's always those things you got to think about. What size enclosure does this reptile need? What kind of food does it eat? What's its diet? How often does it eat? How big is it gonna get? How large of an enclosure is it gonna need when it's full grown, and not just right now that's gonna work for now? There's a lot of things you can ask yourself that'll help you out in the long run, and doing that will help, you know, a lot of reptiles out here in the world, because a lot of people impulse buy. I'm one of those people, but I've learned from when I was a teenager to now with, I bought a Savannah monitor. I got a 40-gallon tank and it stayed in that for a while, and then I built it a cage. But when I first got that lizard, I was told, hey man, it'll be set up like you just do this, have it in a glass tank, you have this kind of bedding, so on and so forth. And it didn't work out. So with that being said, these are things I like to think about because of mistakes that I've made in my past. So it helps to have these things in mind when it comes to getting something. And it's kind of common sense when you're going to buy a reptile to make sure that you can properly care for it. But some people, they are just so excited and the reptile's so beautiful, they're just like, I have to have it. And then a couple months down the road, they turn around and they have to sell it because they can't properly care for it. But all right, guys, I'm going to show you some snakes, then try to go over some ball python stuff, see how that goes. Much love, everybody.